So this article comes from Ars Technica, and it's called Adobe cancels all users' accounts in Venezuela to comply with Trump's order.
Oh boy.
Right. So Trump issued an executive order. I think it was 13884, and it was against Venezuela. And in the sanction, it says that it blocks all properties and assets of the government and its officials and prohibits any transactions with them, including the Venezuela Central Bank and the state oil company. So pretty much what it was saying is that American companies can't do business with Venezuela. Although it's been a little tricky because the more I've been reading, I believe it's saying that American companies can't do business with the Venezuelan government and not technically the rest of Venezuela, like the regular people. So it's a little tricky, but in order to comply, Adobe ended up canceling all its subscriptions to all its users in Venezuela. And so, subscription
Oh my.
holders in Venezuela, they got an email saying that they have until October 28th to download anything that they have in like the Creative Cloud and Lightroom and the Document Cloud and Adobe Spark before they kind of lose everything. And Adobe, they also created like a fax page and a FAQ page on their site that kind of covers what's going on too. And I guess there's also another little issue because the sanction that Trump said also said that technically you don't have to give a refund as well. It says that it kind of says you know it doesn't honor refunds, but in the FAQ it does say that Adobe will kind of cover refunds if need be. So there's been a lot of confusions about that as well, and it's I don't know. It's just a mess. Overall, I think it's terrible news all around, right? I think it bothers me the most that it potentially affects people um, trying to make a living, right? Because if you think about it, other businesses they have ways to kind of hold themselves over for like a while, but here you're completely cutting off the software that people use on a daily basis in their industry, and it sucks because we have such a dominant company that's taken over our industry, so we're kind of forced to rely on them, on Adobe, and it sucks. And it also questions, it also is a question for me whether if like why this isn't affecting other kind of online companies, right? Like, what if that would have to happen with Google or Facebook? Google is a you would need it as a communication tool, or for Facebook as well. Like to have the ability not to be able to use these softwares. I don't get how this all works. So it's kind of tricky.
So,
And go ahead.
no, I just had a question because if if visual designers or UX UI designers or like companies are using Adobe software and they can't use it anymore, then what software are they going to use?
Well, that's the problem, right? Like they're forced to fend for themselves. They're forced to use old versions that they have. Um, for years, there are solutions out there. Um, Fortunately, if you do a search for Google or Adobe alternatives, there's like you can find this kind of infographic sheet that has each program, and it'll tell you what their alternatives are, and then it also tell you if it's free or if it's paid or if it's one time
Mm,
paid. Yeah. So for example, if you look at Photoshop, you have Affinity Photo, Clip Studio, Krita, a GIMP, Fire Alpaca, Medibang Paint, Photopea, which is a tool that I also recommended, Paint Side Tool, My Paint, Paint.net. So there are options, and there are options for each kind of software as well. Although this doesn't show like video production.
yeah, yeah. Because like I always think is like, man, if Adobe's going to lose, it's like, well, Sketch might move in there, but then again, Sketch is born here, in the States. So like I'm wondering if they're going to have the same problem.
Well, the tricky thing though is that sketches are like a one-time buy.
Oh,
Although
that's true.
technically it's a yearly license that you purchase, but
Yeah,
you can stick with that software and you could buy it one time and you won't have to. Technically, you just won't be able to update it, but you'll be able to
true.
have it and use it. And so, yeah, I mean, why not, right? That's a solution right there. What else was I gonna mention? We've all been kind of. Oh, I don't know about you, but I've always been a little hesitant to switch over to the cloud version of Adobe softwares. It took me a while. Like it took me maybe 2 or 3 years to finally adopt it, and only because I had to. And then I was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna be doing this, then I'll just transfer over. And so, I've used it ever since. But you know, this is a great warning for all of us, right? Like, um, this is happening because of a sanction, uh, and with it's for political reasons. But I mean, this also shows that maybe for any reasons we might have our softwares taken away, right? They control it, they can shut it off kind of whenever. If they feel somehow we've been using it wrong, they feel like somebody stole our account and they've been like using it, and we have multiple situations. I don't know, whatever situation you might have your software taken away, and it could be taken away in an instant, right? And so, what do you
Yeah,
do? So it's just good to know,
other
you know,
software.
yeah, even if you don't have, uh, even if you don't have to go out and buy the other softwares, but hey, check out what's available. Make sure you know how to use them, and if you're in a pinch, then yeah, you could definitely download all these alternatives, right? But it's a tricky situation, and just know that you're gonna need a backup, right? Terry, what do you think about this whole kind of craziness?
Personally, I think I'm living in the twilight zone. I
Why is
mean,
that?
because okay, it says Adobe appears to be interpreting the executive order more broadly than other companies. Microsoft Office 365 and other cloud services are still available in Venezuela. What
Yeah,
does
you can get
that
all
mean?
these other. You can get like nobody else is
Why?
any other of these. What am I trying to say? No other online uh, software company is making this type of kind of drastic measure to comply. Only Adobe was doing it, and I don't know why. It seems like they're really into, hey, we want to make sure we don't get in trouble. We're going to follow by the book. But I don't know. I don't know what this. It's definitely a weird situation. I actually reached
Yeah.
out to other Venezuelan designers that I can find. There there is sort of I guess there's sort of language barrier, but from what I was able to interpret, that yeah, it is kind of messed up. They do also hate the situation that's going on, and they over one of the designers I spoke to, they hated it because they also took away their Behance portfolio or their portfolio site. So now they use our portfolio site for their branding and marketing. They don't have that option anymore. They did say that Behance is still you can still have Behance, but also that other designer didn't have a backup software, so they don't know what they're gonna do yet, just yet. So I'm gonna keep in contact with them and see if what's been going on since. If you are if you are from Venezuela, if you're being affected by this, reach out to us. Let us know what's going on. Let us know, if you've had this with other softwares, or is it just Adobe, or and what you're doing about it. What
Yeah.
are your ways to get around it? Maybe if we can, share the news with other people, we can help them out. If they're like, hey, go to this site, you could get a discount for this software or whatever. Let's get a dialogue going of what softwares will be a better option.
Yeah, definitely. Sketch is what 99 bucks a year, but if you get the new version now, yeah, it's really it's sad too because as a fellow or creative person, the same thing. I mean, imagine I'm doing, my job and somebody tells me, "Oh, you can't use this software anymore." It's like, "Oh my god, they're taking my heart." Ah, because that's what you do. That's your livelihood. It's like how yes, it's just very interesting. There's always two sides to a story, and this is just one side, right?
Yeah, I know for me, I was in a situation where I couldn't use, my Adobe softwares for like a month, and I was struggling. It was tough to, find alternatives that were free, and to, you know, manage to use them quickly. Luckily, I found Photopea, which I highly recommend if you need a software quick, Photoshop or Illustrator really quick. Photopea is a browser-based, um, design software that you can, edit photos. It works just kind of like Photoshop does now. So use that if you need it for sure. It's free. You can export it as SVGs and Photoshop files and pings and whatever you need. I definitely recommend that as an option. But yeah, it was tough to try to, just little things that I rely on, Photoshop for on a daily basis, which I was like, oh man, like I don't have, like, how do you upscale photos without Photoshop? Like, I have no idea. Like, I guess there's an online software you can use, but, I wasn't able to find one quick enough. I don't know. It's a tough situation. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that
No kidding.
article that article was called Adobe cancels all user accounts in Venezuela to comply with Trump's order, and you can find that at ARS Technica.